Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, a.k.a. Derringer. Today is Sunday, January 28th, and you are listening to episode 142 of the Instant Action Podcast, your weekly source for Planetside 2 news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. What's been happening with me this week? Well, same old, bit of Planetside 2 here and there. Doing lots of stuff in-game, working on the Lasher. I'm at about 580 kills with the Platinum Lasher right now. So there is that, and I'm certainly happy to be working my way through that. So like I said, halfway done with the Platinum Lasher. And like I said, Nanite Appreciation Week kicked off beginning on January 26th. That was just this past Friday. And it is going through to February 4th. For those that are curious, that is next Sunday. So a little longer than I had guessed. I guessed the 26th to the 2nd, but 26th to the 4th is when the Nanite Appreciation is going on. And as I said, I wanted to purchase the Platinum Mini Chain Gun. I did purchase the Platinum Mini Chain Gun. I also purchased the Platinum Jackhammer because you can never have enough of these heavy weapons. That's the way that I see it. So I think once I finish up the Platinum Lasher, that's my current goal right now, I'm going to go back over to NC and I want to finish up the Light Assault Directive. I'm getting close to finishing that one. And then once I finish the Light Assault Directive, I think my next goal is going to be to Araxium maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe all 3 jackhammers. Yes, I'm going to be an absolute shotgun whore within the game itself. But you might be asking yourself, what is Nanite Appreciation Week? Now, I know I talked about it on a couple shows a few weeks ago. Basically, everything that was offered in the December 2017 holiday countdown sales. So they had 31 days of sales where you could get things like the Solid Faction Camo, first, second, third, and fourth anniversary bundles, the aforementioned Platinum Heavy Weapons that I talked about, also the Faction Gold pistols, that's the Gold Beamer, the Gold Repeater, and the Gold Mag Shot. I own all of them. Again, I got them because I had a code to unlock them, but if you didn't have a code, this is basically your chance to actually unlock them. It's also a good time if you're interested in things like the Sigma, the Havoc, or the Darkstar Hardlight armors, or the AVA, Nomad, or Zealot armor bundles. They're a little expensive for me even still. I mean, I really wanted the Zealot armor bundle, but I don't know that I can spend 2,300-ish, 2,600, I can't remember, Daybreak cash on a full armor bundle for something that is just a cosmetic to me within the game itself. So I will most likely hold off on that. The Heatwave weapon bundle still is looking at me, but again, same thing. I'm a little hesitant to spend all that kind of money on it. Again, these things are also out on the PS4. I mean, there's a little bit of a difference. Like, for example, PC side gets the Construction Defense set and the Construction Logistics set that you can unlock, whereas if you're on PS4 instead, you're restricted to the 5-year loyalty bundle and also the Platinum NS11 instead of those two things, because obviously construction is not available on the PS4 side. And what is the 5-year loyalty bundle? Well, you get a Platinum Tonto, a Platinum Salvage Compound Helmet, and the 5th anniversary decal. The cool thing about that one, though, is you can purchase that for 1 cert on the PS4 side. Maybe I need to log back into the PS4 side for that particular one. Again, that's one that on the PC side, we got a code, the PS2 Welcome Back code, and got all those things for free. So I guess one cert isn't too bad for the PS4 side. But in addition to that, they have also stated that during Nanite Appreciation Week, they're offering the Hunter QCX crossbow platinum variant. They're also offering the metallic faction alt color camos and also the metallic pink camos. So if you missed out on getting those in previous Nanite Appreciation Weeks or days or weekends, whatever they were in the past, now is your time to pop in and get those. They're also offering the NS11P for purchase as well during Nanite Appreciation Week, which of course I know I just said is available on PS4 anyways, but that was a PS4 specific during the holiday countdown. It's added back for PC players to get the NS11 Platinum version if you're looking for it as well. So again, I know we're not even to the news section yet, but I wanted to talk that I did pick up my other Platinum heavy weapons and am excited to start using them as we move on into the game itself. Other than that, like I said, been playing a heck of a lot of Planetside 2. Well, at least first half of the week I played some Planetside 2. Second half of the week, I just couldn't get into playing it because other stuff was going on. An early soccer game on Thursday kind of screwed me over. Friday, I ended up sitting down and watching some Black Mirror with the wife, and that kind of sucked me in. Last night on Saturday, I had friends over. We did a little board game night with some Betrayal at House on the Hill play. So, haven't had a chance as much as I would have liked to during this double XP weekend. Hopefully I'm recording this week's show a little earlier today so that I can get online and play the remainder of the double XP weekend tonight on Sunday. But enough about me. What's actually in store for this week's show? Well, obviously first I have a new dev live stream to talk about, followed by a brand new game that I have to talk about, and it's actually Planetside 2 related. After that, there's some quick news pieces about maxes and alert changes, followed by a pretty good listener email concerning construction that I want to talk about. So strap in as we hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. First up this week, let's talk about that January 24th dev live stream. Unfortunately, I was not able to watch it live. I was very sad about that. I had a work dinner I had to attend, so I had to watch one of the VODs of it, which thank you to Rel for putting out the VOD of that, so I didn't have to search around on Twitch. It also means that it probably won't just disappear in the future. Like a lot of the older stuff on Twitch just seems to disappear. So again, I watched the VOD. I did it at work. Don't tell my boss. I was actually doing other work while I was watching it. But good stuff. I'm very happy first off that the developers are now doing dev live streams again. Now, the last one we had December-ish when they were talking about stuff that was coming in December. They did one prior to that in October where they talked about the new Halloween directives and stuff like that. And this was all in response to a lot of complaints from the community, myself included, that there was a lot of time where we're not getting information from the dev team. So at this time and point, I think all of us can stop complaining that we're not getting enough interaction from the dev team itself, because they're certainly pumping out as much information as they possibly can at us and being pretty transparent on what's actually going on with the game itself. So, again, awesome that they had a live stream. I can't wait for the next live stream. They didn't even say that they were going to be doing one or anything like that, but so we kind of just got to take it at face value that they're going to continue to do these live streams. It's good for the community. It's good for them. So I expect to get more of them in the future. But on this particular one, we got them to talk about the new map mode that they're calling Unstable Warp Gates. I believe they're also calling the patch the Unstable Patch as well. An awesome name for a patch, if I do say so myself. So what the Unstable Warp Gate is going to do is basically when an alert is going off on another continent and it might be difficult to get onto a fresh continent to play on, what's going to happen is a new continent is going to unlock itself, and there's going to be a restriction to the lattice line itself. And the images that we have seen is basically that you're just getting the outer lattice line of the continent unlocked to begin with. And so you're not going to be able to fight or play or fly or do anything in the middle of the map itself. Everything is going to be restricted to those specific battle lanes on the actual outer ring of the map itself. What's also interesting is you're not going to get any 2v1 fights on things like this. You're not going to get any all three factions fighting over the same point, which is kind of interesting. But again, it's really just to be used when a continent is first unlocked, and to give it a low pop solution for it being an off continent. It's a pretty flexible system. They said that they could also just route people to the center or things like that. They said it might be interesting to use with events like the Planetside Battles group doing their lane smashes or things like that. This has given them a lot of flexibility to lock and unlock specific portions of the continent. And Paul Giaggio was quick to point out that this wasn't something that was in the game, and they actually had to program it and design it and test it by adding a fourth faction to the game, and this is the Nothing faction, because these other links or hexes, lattice points, whatever you want to call them, they had to be given to that fourth Nothing faction so that they couldn't be accessed or attacked or defended or even gone into by the three main factions of the game itself. So as you can see, there definitely was a bit of programming to get this into the game itself. And I was most excited to hear that this could be something that Lane Smash, specifically Planetside Battles folks, can take advantage of, because right now they've got to kind of restrict people on the honor system to stay within a specific lane. If the devs can actually restrict a specific small area of a map and allow something like this to happen, that certainly makes their jobs at Planetside Battles a lot easier and makes these match type things a lot more fun and easier to do as well. I only wish we had something like that way back in the day when we were doing Community Clash, because trying to herd people around is like herding cats, and it was an absolute clusterfuck when we tried to do it. And the fact that we got any of those Community Clash matches off is just beyond me. So I'm very happy to see unstable warp gates. And again, it's a way to keep the low pop off continent viable again as well. So I'm really excited. This is the biggest thing that I took away from their dev live stream, and the thing that I personally am most interested in seeing come to the game itself. Now, next after that, they talked about how the rest of the map is actually going to unlock. They're right now calling it something called Turning Points, which is kind of a work in progress name. They're not particularly happy with it, but it's going to be a new mini event that they could throw out there, like Rel suggested, gain air superiority on a continent, and then suddenly all Empire-specific fighters are free or reduced costs, and they're hoping that these Turning Points events can kind of shape how the rest of the continent warfare unfolds, and give both new and existing players something different to do without this sort of resource punishment that they're used to when they get onto a new continent. Again, that's all a work in progress. There's no guarantee that those things are even going to come into the game itself. We'll have to wait until we see that stuff hit the test server itself before we can actually play around with it. Next, they also talked about the capital ships, these Bastion fleet carriers that we see up in the air. Rel said they actually contracted out to Steve O to redo the model of them so that they would actually look nicer, and that potentially they're hinting that they could have a larger role within the game at a later date, including allowing people to maybe land on them and walk around on them and do stuff on them. It was interesting, though, when they took a step back from that and said how the original models were completely unfinished, and that's why they are so high up in the air that you can't reach them. And that's also, Paul Giaggio said that's why they actually kind of make everything blurry when the meltdown alert ends, because they don't want you to really get a good look at them. So absolutely hilarious that they reached out to Steve-O to work on them and flesh them out into something nicer that actually somebody can actually land on, interact with, and do stuff on. I'm looking forward to the Bastion fleet carriers to come into the game so we can check them out more. And I'd love to fly around and check out the model that Steve-O did. We see a lot of stuff from Steve-O in game, so I'm excited, definitely excited for it. Next, there was a little bit of a talk about the new player experience for the game itself. That's something that they are definitely going to be focusing on as they move forward with the game with 2018. It's one of their prime things that they really would like to do, and that includes, working on a new tutorial and stuff like that. And I'll say it right now, if any of the Planetside 2 devs over there are listening and you need a veteran podcaster with a community voice to kind of talk people through a tutorial, you know where I am and you can find me, and I'd be more than happy to do something like that, since apparently all I do is talk to you people and you all listen. So, but again, new player experience, Rel admitted that the existing tutorial is dated at this point. A single programmer or designer was working on that back in the day, and it was just kind of all patched together and thrown into the game. It's the best tutorial that they have, and we all understand that it's not as good as it could be, and it could be a barrier of entry for some newer players. That Roxley admitted on Reddit that they're getting new players every day into the game, so they want to continue to try and flesh things out and make things better to allow new players to get into the game, understand the game better, and play the game better. So again, that's why the new player experience is going to be a huge focus in 2018. And on top of that, outfit progression and squad updates are again going to be a huge thing in 2018. Now, watching the stream, obviously, Rel, Paul, and Nick Silva was on the stream as well. The three of them were very anxious about it. They didn't really want to go into too much detail. It's kind of secret what they're working on, and I think it's intentionally left vague to kind of titillate us, but not really tell us exactly what they're doing yet, because maybe they don't know exactly what they're doing yet, and they're still at the drawing board on it. But ultimately, they'd like outfits to be more than just a name tag and friends list. So they're looking at potential outfit progression, maybe a bigger social hub than it currently is, maybe more ranks to it, maybe some other quality of life improvements. Paul was quick to mention fire teams, and Rel cut him off. So they're really inviting any type of speculation at this point right now. But Rel did go a little further and said something about maybe a mentor squad. They'd like to kind of drop a mentor squad into the existing game itself to get new players to join and incentivize some veteran or good players to lead and guide these new players around so they understand exactly what's going on. And also they'd like to add some more depth to how squad leaders lay attack and defend markers within the game itself, and also to kind of foster some better interactions between squad and platoon leaders. So again, if I'm being vague, it's because the devs were being vague on this particular one. There's not a lot of information on it. Just we know that it's going to be a big part of 2018. They also talked about the next round of weapons that are coming into the game, and obviously these are Doku's weapons. We know the LMGs are on the PTS right now. If you haven't gone out and played with the three of them, and of course we know their names, the Vanu are getting the Maw, the Terran Republic are getting the Watchman, and the New Conglomerate are getting the Ballast. Or are they? Because Rel said that they do not like the name Ballast. They gave it the name Ballast because the anchor is one of the other main main LMGs for the new conglomerate. So, and it's created by a company, in the lore at least, it's created by a company named Liberty Arsenal, and it has a nautical theme to it. So the lore of the new LMGs is that this particular one, which was going to be called the Ballast, was also created by Liberty Arsenal and therefore needed a nautical name. However, they do not like the name Ballast. So if anybody out there has any suggestions on what to call it that is a nautical type theme but is not the ballast or obviously the anchor, because the anchor is existing, they're looking for any suggestions, anything like that. Please make a suggestion to them on a new name rather than the ballast. And obviously it'll get changed before it goes live. They did state that the next weapons that are coming after LMGs are going to be battle rifles. Interestingly, they called them marksman rifles. We know they're battle rifles in game. I wonder if there's a chance that they might change them from battle rifles to marksman rifles at some point later on. I'm not really sure where they were going with that, unless it's just a tongue-in-cheek that you've got to be a marksman to use the battle rifles. I'm not exactly sure. So, again, next up after the LMGs is going to be Dooku's battle rifles, so we can certainly look forward to that. Next, they took a round of questions from there, and someone asked about new vehicles, and Rel said that it's not impossible, but not probable in the near future, because it's an expensive design decision. They said, though, they would love to get new vehicles into the game itself. So this is where I do my job and say, please bring back the Empire-specific buggies to the game. Now, anybody that played Planetside like I did, the original, knows that the NC had their own Empire-specific buggy called the Enforcer. The Terran Republic had their own called the Marauder. And the Vanu Sovereignty had their own called the Thresher. Now, I played the hell out of Thresher gameplay, and back when we were doing Reachcast, I constantly asked for a Thresher to be made in the game itself. So this is where I get down on my knees and beg and pray and cry and plead with the devs, if you're listening. Please don't say that new vehicles are out of the, are not ever going to come to the game itself. Please give me my Thresher. Please. I will buy, I will say it right now. If the devs put a Thresher in the game, I will buy every cosmetic for it, every gun for it. I will buy all of it. Day one when it launches. If that costs me $200, if that costs me $300, I will do it to get the Thresher in the game itself, because if a Thresher comes into the game, I'll never leave the Thresher, because it was my favorite vehicle in the original Planetside. I want it in the game itself. So call me a whale, call me whatever you want. Devs, if you're listening, if a Thresher comes into the game, that is the Planetside 2 equivalent of the original Thresher, I will throw money at you and be the happiest person that could ever be. Moving along, though, someone else asked about the PlayStation 4 updates of Planetside 2, and specifically around construction. And Nick took this one, saying that right now, as it stands, construction does not mesh well with the PlayStation 4 hardware platform. And unfortunately, they're probably going to need to redesign construction from the ground up in order to fit it into the PlayStation 4 hardware platform itself. So it's not off the table, but it's taking a lot more resources, effort, and work than they originally wanted to get construction over there. And therefore, updates are going to be out of sync between PC and PS4 as a result of it. But it is their goal to get them closer in line as they move along. And I mean, a good example of that is, we did have a January patch where both PC and PS4 got the same stuff at the same time. So we know it's possible. It's just a matter of getting it to that point. So PlayStation 4 folks, don't give up hope at this particular point and time. Someone else asked about lore, and they said lore updates are coming to the game themselves. They mentioned about a relic system, which kind of got quickly shot down, so we're just left to speculation on what that could be. Someone else asked about zerging in the game itself, because it's people complain about zerging, and obviously they say it's a complicated matter. They don't want to be heavy-handed, because that's the gameplay some people do. Their goal right now, though, is to perhaps use some spawn system enhancements to address it, but they're not going to be able to outright stop zerging without taking away the open sandbox type game experience that people are used to within Planetside 2 itself. So the big takeaway there, though, is that there's going to be some spawn system enhancements coming to the future of the game itself, so we're kind of going to have to get excited about those also. The last little bit of news, and this kind of happened right in the beginning of the dev live stream that I didn't even talk about because I'm not really doing this in super good order, but they did introduce a new programmer, Garrett Brush, who joined the team on or around Halloween. He is a new programmer within the game itself. It sounded like he was fresh out of college, or this might be his first job in the world, and if so, congratulations. If not, I apologize. But again, new programmer introduced to the team, Garrett Brush, and he'll be working on various things within Planetside 2 itself. All in all, a productive live stream. Granted, they didn't show off too much new stuff. I mean, they showed off the Bastion fleet carrier model change. They showed off the unstable warp gate stuff. They showed off the turning point stuff. So I guess there was some new things, but there's still a lot of speculation, or we're kind of just generally having to guess what's going on next with outfit progression, squad updates, and stuff like that. But again, I'm extremely pleased that they're continuing to do these dev live streams, and like I said at the beginning, it fosters great. It's great to do it for the community and to bring this information to us. And it also helps me when I do a show each week because I've got something to talk about. With that, let's move on to our second topic this week. And the second topic this week is a new game that I talked about. And I'm sure you're all thinking, a new game? You're going to talk about what? RimWorld, or who knows what else he's going to talk about this time. No, I'm talking about Matt Higbee's Reaver Simulator. And this is a game that was created by Sky Briggs. He had some help from another player named Ten Oker, who did some play testing and writing. He didn't actually create the game itself. But it's your classic shoot-'em-up type game, which, if anybody remembers back in the original NES days, I'm talking games like 1942. I had 1942 on the NES. I also had 1943. I played the hell out of these. Other people said things like Aero Fighters. I'm sure a lot of people know about that one. There's a whole bunch. Gemini Wing is another example. There's tons of these games that are like this, where you're basically a plane in the bottom of the screen, and you move around the screen and you shoot the enemies as they constantly come down the screen at you. Again, I loved 1942 back when it was released forever ago when I was a child. And so first off, thank you, Sky Briggs, for bringing this. I downloaded it. I played it. You control your Reaver with the arrow keys. You shoot with the Z key. You fire coyotes with the X key. I'm very bad at it. I've only played it a couple times because I haven't had a lot of time to play it. But it's all Planetside 2 type ships. You've got your mosquitoes. You've got tanks on the ground. You've got harassers driving back and forth. You've got a giant liberator at the end. Apparently, when you get further in, there's Rel in a scythe as a boss later on. I haven't gotten that far into the game itself. It's a hilarious little game. I'm going to include a link to the Reddit post about this game if you are interested in checking this out. And it's a game that is fully supported and approved by Matt Higbee himself. You got to check this one out. Like I said, it's a little shoot 'em up. You just fly around in a Reaver and you shoot at stuff, and it's a hilarious little time waster. Again, Sky Briggs, awesome work on this. Ten Oker, good job play testing and writing for this. It's a lot of fun. You guys got to check it out. Third up this week, I want to talk briefly about a quick little Reddit post, because at one point, a user on Reddit, and I should look who exactly that is, it was Tau Arkin, asked, can Maxes flip vehicle capture points? And this was something that I don't believe that they can do on Live Now, and I was absolutely right, because Rel confirmed that no, but they will be able to when the next round of vehicle capture points get released. So this is kind of a new thing. As we know, in the game currently, on regular capture points, Maxes cannot capture them. So when a Max crash occurs, you've got to have plenty of infantry backup to actually capture the point itself. Now, again, this isn't regular points. This is only vehicle capture points. But going forward, when this actually comes to live itself, you're going to be able to capture a vehicle capture point with a Max suit. Again, it's just a small topic I want to talk about this week, but very important that everybody knows that this is actually coming to the game itself. And with that, let's move on to our fourth and final topic this week. And that fourth topic is about upcoming alert changes. Again, this is just another quick and dirty post that Rel happened to be on Ahorn's stream earlier this week, and there was some questions about the current meltdown alerts and what changes might be made to them, because a lot of people aren't happy with them. I'm not going to lie, I'm one of those people that's kind of not happy with them at this point, because what tends to happen is I always see them happen on off continents, and it's one faction is far and away ahead on territory control that the other factions can't come back and defeat them, and I'm guilty of doing it myself. I have changed over characters to whatever faction is ahead just to win the ISO and the free loot box item. So I was happy to see, even though I do that, like I said, I'm a dick, whatever. I was happy to see Rel saying that the plan is to go back to a 3-faction winner takes all alert in the future, in the near future, which they're fine with as a developer team. So basically, it sounds like the meltdown alert is still going to kick off, but it's going to be one of those where whichever faction wins is going to be the one that receives the max amount of ISO 4 and also receives the loot box. I like that idea because it incentivizes the faction triggering the alert to bust ass to make sure that they win the alert, but it also gives a good incentive for those other 2 factions to fight out the entire alert, and you won't get jerks like me switching as much to a preferable faction just to win the type of alert. So again, no date set in stone when that might happen, but I'm sure it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And with that, let's move into housekeeping this week.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
All right, I did get an email this week from Peter, and he wrote, Dear Derringer, I am interested in your opinion about the current state of the base building system. To my mind, the whole system is like an own game that runs alongside with capping bases and killing enemies. Planetside became more and more a massive shooter and moved away from the slow-paced strategy fights due to spawning inside galaxies, Valkyries, or Sunderers. Thus, I feel like most of the players only try to get as many kills as possible, and no one is fighting for his faction anymore. The alerts appear so often that I most of the time do not know whether there is an alert active or not. I think that most of the high-ranked players do not give a shit, about a continent being locked or a lost alert. You can simply fight elsewhere. So, why should anyone bother building a base? It is boring. It is way too expensive to unlock enough elements to have any effect on the game if you're not a paying whale on your BR-120. And the fights at self-constructed bases are only based on population due to no buildings, which could be defended for something important like an A point. In my opinion, the whole system should be more accessible to new players by reducing the cost drastically, although the bases should not be that useless. I think a great idea would be that a certain way of constructing a base would have the effect of being able to pull heavy tanks or aircrafts in the same hex. Another idea would be that there is something like an orbital strike that launches drop pods all over the map with an accuracy of around 100 meters. So there are definite possibilities to change the whole issue to something we really care about. I look forward to hearing about your opinion. First off, Peter, thank you for your email. It's been a few weeks since I've gotten one, so I appreciate it. So my opinion on the current state of the base building system is, like you said, players don't give a shit about it unless that's all that you do in the game is build bases. I do also agree that the barrier to entry is extremely high, but the good news about that is they're going through a massive review of the costs of them and are looking to at least change the nanite costs of a lot of them. And REL has also indicated that they are going to look at reducing the barrier of entry by cutting the costs to actually purchase the schematics themselves to build stuff like that. So there is potential possibility that it could be a lot more user-friendly. That being said, yeah, in its current state, it is extremely boring. I rarely fight at a player-made base because there's usually not a lot of people there. It's usually off in the middle of nowhere, and it is usually just not something that I want to do. I have left public squads who have changed tactics to go attack player-made bases because of those particular reasons. Now, as I said, the devs are aware of this, and they are working on something like that as well. You're seeing all these new capture points, vehicle capture points that are allowing player-made base construction on top of them on 3 of the 4 continents coming in the next game update. So they're aware of it as well. So not only do we think it's kind of crap at this point, but they understand that it's kind of crap at this point. And it does feel like it's a bolt-on addition to the game itself. Now, what's going to get me to do construction? Like you said, a much lower barrier of entry, and I don't know if they're going to make them cheap enough for someone like me to get into it, but who knows? Because it's not what I want to do when I play the game itself. I do want to be one of the players who's just in there killing as many people as possible and not dealing with player-made bases. If a player-made base is in the way of where I'm going to attack or something like that, then sure, I'll jump in and join and blow up walls with my tank or whatever. But otherwise, I'm staying away from these things. That being said, I am interested to see how player-made bases come in the next game update once they add all those new lattice lines or lattice links to vehicle capture points with player-made bases. I would really like to see some of those implemented into the game itself and how they work from there. So my opinion on it all right now is I'm still not going to play it until this stuff actually hits live. I've checked it out on the test server a little bit, and you know, it is what it is. There's not a lot of people on test server, so I've kind of got to sit and wait until I see it come to live itself. Allowing people to pull aircraft or heavy tanks in the same hex as it, sure. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. Is that a be-all, end-all to get me to do it? Probably not. I don't know how I feel about your orbital strike idea, which launches drop pods, because you've kind of got to get 2 different things working on that one. You've got to A, get somebody to build the orbital strike platform, B, get them to charge it up so it actually launches an orbital strike, excuse me, and then C, have enough people in instant action or something to actually do the drop pod or something like that. It seems like there's too many pieces to get that one to work really well within the game itself. Could I see it doing something different, like potentially allowing squad leaders to call in something like an airstrike and pepper an area with an airstrike? Sure, I could see something like that. I think the devs really need to tie construction wholeheartedly into things happening within the game itself, like launching an orbital strike on a base. Right now you obviously can't do an orbital strike on a existing base in the game itself. I think they should heavily tie orbital strikes into the game itself. I think they should heavily tie the Glaive IPC even. Right now it's for working on the Sky Shield emitter. Have them launch that at a base itself and knock out all players' shields or something like that. When something make it act like an EMP in a large radius of an area and make it affect both friendlies and enemies. Same thing with the orbital strikes. I mean, orbital strikes were such a huge thing in the original Planetside that I feel the kind of half-hearted bolt-on version that they are right now in game isn't what they should be in the game itself. So again, tie construction heavily to existing things in the game itself. Sure, don't let people build their bases in existing bases yet, but I see no reason why the Glaive and the Orbital Strike right now can't be used on regular bases. Give something for somebody to fear, within the game itself. So maybe that doesn't answer all your questions or really flesh out my full opinion on this, but that's kind of what I've got for it. As it stands right now, I'm not a huge fan of construction, and I pretty much avoid it at all costs. Give me a reason to want to do it or want to destroy it. Like I said, if someone's building an orbital strike platform and it's going to orbital strike the base that I'm fighting over, that's going to give me a reason to pay attention to construction and want to stop it from happening. So hopefully that answers your question. And again, thank you very much for that email. As always, like I said, anybody who sends me an email, I will read it on the show and discuss it and give my thoughts regarding it. That being said, that's going to be it for this week's show. As always, how can you get in touch with me or the show itself? First off, visit my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. Send me an email like Peter did, instantactionshow@gmail.com. Call me, leave me a voicemail, 347-4VM-4PS2, or that's 347-486-4772. Follow the show on Twitter @InstActPodcast, or follow my personal Twitter @TheDerringer. But in closing, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. Also, feel free to tell your friends and outfit mates about the show. And finally, thanks for listening, and keep spamming that Join Combat, formerly known as Instant Action button.